Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin by standing and singing together?
Good morning to everyone. Welcome to First Unitarian Portland. We are a multi-generational community that aims to co-create the beloved community. Here we come to tend our spirits, care for one another, and work for justice. And you are welcome here, whether you are feeling hopeful or weary, whether you're joining us for the first time, or whether this is your 80th year here. We're glad to see you here coming in from online and coming here into the seats. It is good to be together today on this fresh morning in a broken world, to quote Mary Oliver. Following the service, I invite you to join fellow congregants downstairs for our social hour in Fuller Hall. If you're a regular congregant who's lucky enough to be sitting next to someone wearing a visitor's tag, first you might check that they didn't just forget their name tag, and then help them find their way downstairs if they don't already know. And if you're new here this morning and you want to find out a little more about our congregation, I invite you to join us for a brief welcome circle directly following the service in the gallery over here to my left and to your right. It's a chance to meet some community leaders, staff, and other new folks, and to get questions you might have answered. There are a few announcements this morning. One, the learning community is hosting a potluck followed by games with New Moon Entertainment, some of the most popular entertainment opportunities we have for families, in Buchanan Reception. Children and youth, parents and teachers all are welcome. Today, the board and I are also hosting a winter update and forum in Elliott Chapel at noon. I will give a short update on congregational life. Treasurer Roger Robinson will provide an update on the annual fund drive, and we will share draft guiding priorities for next year's budget. The board will also be introducing 2 proposed changes to the church's bylaws, including one about changing the board size that many other Unitarian Universalist congregations have already gone through. On Tuesday, January 28th, join us for a Zoom forum at 7 p.m. How Will We Defend Attacks on Immigrants? Held by our Advancing Racial Justice Group and our Immigrant Justice Action Group. And you can register at the link in this week's Front Steps, our weekly email news. And I'll just name that Dana, our social justice director, and I were talking about the number of people in front of the Mexican consulate this morning, right here at our doorstep. And let's just, even as we begin, hold folks in our hearts who are dealing with so much this week. It's good to be together. And a special announcement for those who join us mostly or entirely online, and really for all of us. Beginning in February, we're going to kick off a weekly Connect and Reflect time together on Zoom at 5:30 on Tuesdays. And this will be an opportunity for social connection and conversation and reflection connected to the topic of that week's service. So it will kick off in February. And now let us all take a moment to greet our neighbors and to welcome them warmly. Double your pleasure, double your fun, double your pledges, double your gifts.
Join us in reaching our annual fund drive goal. Good news, good people. We're incredibly fortunate to have $60,000 in matching gifts to challenge us to rise up and meet our annual fund goal. Yes. Yes. The first half is from a magnanimous church member. The other half is from every single member of our church board. Yeah. Our thanks go to these generous donors.
Gift matches will help us meet our annual fund goal, the cornerstone of our church's financial health and stability. It enables us to continue work as a welcoming spiritual community, to support our programs and services that further social justice and offer spiritual and educational opportunities open to all. When we match that $60,000, we will have raised $120,000 to meet our $1.4 million goal.
This is how the match works. Starting today, whether you make a new pledge, increase your existing pledge, or donate now, the amount will be matched dollar for dollar up to $60,000. For example, your gift of $250 means $500 for the church. Increasing your existing pledge by $2,000 will bring in an additional $2,000 in matching funds. Your gift will go twice as far. Much appreciation goes to the Alliance, which has already stepped forward to offer $5,000 towards our matching funds. Only $55,000 to go.
These are the ways to contribute.
Online giving. Click on the donate button in the front steps.
Visit our homepage and click the Match 2025 image.
By mail, send your checks to the church office specifying Match 2025 on your memo line.
In person, drop off your donations during Sunday services or at the church office during the week. Be sure to specify Match 2025 in the memo line.
Thank you. So many people have already been so generous in this annual fund drive. As we come again to ask for everybody's support, please know how very grateful we are.
Please act today to help meet the annual fund drive to assure a vibrant new church year. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh, they're popping up already. Yeah. Someone up in the balcony, 5 people down here, yes? Yes, you're in? Great. I'm in too. So, and I see another person in. Thank you. We'll see, and another. So I feel like we're getting closer and closer every moment.
We may have already made it.
And just remember that we are an economically diverse congregation. And what we ask is that people are generous with their time and their talent and their treasure. And in response, we thank you. It makes a difference.
Roger will help me light our chalice, and if you are joining online, I invite you to light a candle of your own. We are Unitarian Universalists. We light this chalice in faith, in hope, and in love. Thank you. You all wear that very well, I'm not going to lie. I feel a little left out without the green wig. I call us into worship this morning with these words from Reverend Linda Susan Ulrich. Push on looming wooden arches embroidered with ironwork. Brace shoulders against the weight of history unmoved. Slough off the musty smell of unused joy and stored up sorrow. Knock rust off the hinges if you have to, and let your breath precede you inside. Open the doors more, make room for a shaft of sunlight to cross the threshold. Give the dust motes something to dance about. Peek through a single slice of possibility and name even the half-hidden truths you see. Open the doors wider still. Pour yourself through the gap. Strut or sneak or sidle as suits you best. Cleanse whatever scrapes catch your skin and bind up the wounds that keep you from entering whole. Open the doors as far as they will go. Draw on the strength of the stones beneath you. Ground yourself in a firm sense of who you are. Stand as a beacon welcoming the next seeker, and shine far beyond the lintel and sill. Open all that you are, heighten and deepen your connections to the world around you, broaden your definition of neighbor, grow into the largest target for grace that you can muster, and pray to become a gateway for even greater love and compassion. Open the doors, my friends, lest we keep the stranger out and condemn ourselves to prisons of our own making.
My heart verlangt naar die stilte van die wye, wuivende veld. Ver van die stadsgeluide in die klinkende klank van goud. Ek is moeg vir die rustelose lewe van mense wat kom en gaan. Ek wil terug na die vrye ruimte waar 'n siel in woon wat verstaan. O, ek sien weer die son op die velde en die ewige blou daarbo. En my hart skiet vol van heimwee en my drome swem in my oë. En my hart skiet vol van heimwee en my drome swem in my oë. Ek sien weer die heilblaue berge daar ver oor die Westerkust. En wonder nie meer waarom weemoed so sag uit my liedere klim. Klim na die gryslig bowe, waar die son in die miste kwyn. Want o, ek verlang
What a gift this morning. Thank you, Garrett and Henriette. That was beautiful. Will you stand as you are able in body or in spirit and join me in our responsive reading this morning with these words by Wendy Bartell. We who dwell on the margins know about divisions, arbitrary and intentional, like land, like class, like culture. We make sharp borders around pieces of ourselves, and we blur the edges by being who we are, by expanding the circle. Beyond binaries, we multiply possibilities, languages, customs, practices, rituals, and ceremonies. Not one narrative, but stories shared. Separation is illusion. Love transgresses borders between you, me, us, them, between secular and sacred. We need trust to strengthen our connection. We must dare to cross from my world into yours, from your world into mine, until we begin to weave a tapestry of faith and wonder aloud. Whose are we? What is a nation? Who can own the earth? And now let us join in singing our doxology, Spirit of Life.
The offering is a time when we meditate on generosity in our lives and how it fuels this community and many others. And this morning, I just want to lift up the generosity of member Henriette, who is with us today, not only with the gift of song, but has also been serving on the music ministry transition team. And we are so lucky for all the gifts we receive from all who share their skills and talents and hopes and dreams with us. This church year, we share our plate offering with community organizations working for the rights and support of immigrants. For the month of January, we are sharing our plate with Innovation Lab. They write, the U.S. government's vast detention and deportation machine works to grind down the spirit of the immigrant. In its wake, communities are torn apart, families separated, and refugees forced to relinquish their right to freedom, inclusion, and safety. Innovation Law Lab provides legal expertise and strategies to build permanent pathways to immigrant and refugee justice. Their programs include rapid intervention, defense of asylum, a clearinghouse for immigrant justice organizing, and immigrant defense here in Oregon. If you'd like to donate via check or cash, our ushers will be coming around in just a moment. If you'd like to give electronically, you can find the QR code on the screen and also on the yellow slips in one of the racks in front of you. And if you are on Boxcast, you can use the Donate Now button. Thank you for your generosity. It fuels a better world.
gestrooi voor my op 'n deur. En die maan wit skoenlapers drywe op die geurende lug, lomerig verby. Ook die hart wat jou bemin, voel die vreugde van die uur, as jou mond so lag, as jou mond so lag.
Ours is a caring community, and we make space each week to hold the milestones of our fellow members and friends since we last met. Throughout the week, pastoral support happens through our ministers and through our lay ministers, and that care includes holding the prayers of the congregation throughout the week. If you are here in person, you can light a candle of intention in our left or right gallery and also write down your prayer if you wish. And online, you can send an intention of prayer to prayer@firstunitarianportland.org. We have 2 milestones to lift up today. One is member Brock Leslie Turner's mother, Sharon, will be having back surgery on February 4th, and we are holding her in our prayers of compassion and healing. And 2, we are holding our lay ministers with celebration and gratitude in our hearts. This past Friday evening, they hit the milestone of having offered 200 online Vespers services, an offering of music, poetry, reflection, prayer, and time in community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let us unite our minds and hearts in a spirit of prayer and reflective meditation. Spirit of life, Spirit of an abundant love, hear our prayers, that every trans and non-binary beloved in our community and in our country knows that they are loved and worthy of love. That every immigrant in our community and our country, whether or not they have documents, know that they are loved and worthy of love. That every Black, Indigenous, and person of color in our community and country knows that they are loved and worthy of that love. That every person who needs access to gender-affirming care or an abortion in our community and our country knows that they are loved and worthy of that love. That every person who has been fired this week in our government or in corporations or anywhere because they counter the rhetoric of supremacy and division falling from the lips of our president, know that they are loved and they are worthy of that love. May all of these people and so many more be fortified in body, mind, and spirit for the work ahead in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. May all of us find ways to cultivate wellsprings of compassion and strength and hope, to counter policies of erasure, diminishment, and devastation that do not honor the dignity of our people or our planet. May we all find ways to show up for and with our neighbors, and may we find that none of us is ever truly alone when we name our fear or our despair, when we cultivate our resilience and resistance, and when we move together with creativity and courage. All these and so many more are our prayers, meditations, and yearnings. May it be so. Blessed be. Salam, shalom, shanti, peace be with all. Amen. And let us be together for a moment with our own prayers in the silence. Let us sing prayerfully together. A poem, The Border, a double sonnet by Alberto Rios. The border is a line that birds cannot see. The border is a beautiful piece of paper folded carelessly in half. The border is where flint first met steel, starting a century of fires. The border is a belt that is too tight, holding things up but making it hard to breathe. The border is a rusted hinge that does not bend. The border is the blood clot in the river's vein. The border says stop to the wind, but the wind speaks another language and keeps going. The border is a brand, the double X of barbed wire scarred into the skin of so many. The border has always been a welcome stopping place, but is now a stop sign, always red. The border is a jump rope, still there even after the game is finished. The border is a real crack in an imaginary dam. The border used to be an actual place, but now it is the act of 1,000 imaginations. The border, the word border, sounds like order, but in this place they do not rhyme. The border is a handshake that becomes a squeezing contest. The border smells like cars at noon and wood smoke in the evening. The border is the place between the 2 pages in a book where the spine is bent too far. The border is 2 men in love with the same woman. The border is an equation in search of an equals sign. The border is the location of the factory where lightning and thunder are made. The border is No-No the clown who can't make anyone laugh. The border is a locked door that has been promoted. The border is a moat, but without a castle on either side. The border has become checkpoint Chale. The border is a place of plans constantly broken and repaired and broken. The border is mighty, but even the parting of the seas created a path, not a barrier. The border is a big, neat, clean, clear black line on a map that does not exist. The border is the line in new bifocals. Below, small things get bigger. Above, nothing changes. The border is a skunk with a white line down its back.
What is this love of wonder suited in? Zag op haar blauwe oë dal die vak, soos noordeskyn, diep waterkuile raak, om daar te droom in silver skemering. Verlaas bly voor haar lippe 'n fluistering. Wag, papie, ek merk hoe langsam hy genak. Wat drome soet tot werklikhede maak. En Vader, starke Hand der Duisternisse lei. Sluit so my oë, God, as ek gaan rus.
Well, friends, it has been quite a week. I struggled with how to begin this sermon, searching for personal stories or clever anecdotes to ease our way in. But I know what is on many of our hearts and minds today, and no amount of clever anecdotes will make our anxiety go away. Since the last time we were all gathered here together to honor the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a new president was inaugurated, and he and his administration have wasted no time enacting their agenda. They have been very busy sowing seeds of hate and division, but as far as I can tell from my last trip to the grocery store, not very busy lowering the price of eggs. And we have been here before. I remember the marches and Facebook posts and sermons from the early days of 2017. The work of resisting cruelty and bigotry, of siding with love and appealing to human decency. But there is something a little different or maybe more heightened in the rhetoric this time around. Or maybe it's just something that I'm more primed to notice. That is the emphasis on binaries and borders. The insistence that there are only two options for everything. There is only right or wrong, us versus them. You are either with us or against us. Maybe it's because this time around, the new administration is a little more angry, having lost once before, and now at the ready to enact vengeance as they return to power. Or maybe they are simply more emboldened in their march towards authoritarianism. But whatever the reason, the black and white way they view the world feels even more present and explicit than it did in 2016. Just look at some of the earliest statements and actions. For example, the harmful executive order stating that the US government will recognize only two sexes, male and female. Or any of their immigration policies, the proposal to end birthright citizenship, deportation separating families, keeping those seeking asylum trapped on the other side of the US border. Even the removal of the White House's Spanish language website and social media accounts send a message that those whose identities and language span borders and cultures, those whose families are of mixed citizenship status, don't matter. I suppose policies and rhetoric that uphold binaries shouldn't be surprising, coming on the heels of a campaign in which Donald Trump questioned, denied, and mocked Kamala Harris's Black and South Asian racial and ethnic identity, implying that she had to choose one. This is extreme and dangerous and troubling, but it is not new. We live in a society that has long insisted on binary boxes and categories, that prioritizes either-or thinking. Government forms and drop-down menus for entering gender and racial identity that insist that the user choose one. Or a criminal justice system that mirrors traditional theologies of good and evil, sinners and saints, and refuses to see people, in the words of attorney and activist Brian Stevenson, as more than the worst thing they've ever done. Anti-racist educator Paul Cavell points out how even something as benign as talking about the weather often leads to dualistic thinking as we assess whether the day's forecast is good or bad. The weather is not good or bad, it just is, he writes. Rain might be inconvenient, disappointing, uncomfortable for some, and welcome needed or comforting for others. This kind of binary thinking poses an immediate threat to those in our communities who are most marginalized, whose identities span borders and defy binary thinking. But it is not surprising to see voices of authoritarianism using this kind of dualistic language. And it's familiar to anyone who has studied history, from the one-drop rule in the US that slotted people into racial categories for the purposes of upholding white supremacy, to the Nazi persecution and genocide of Jewish people during the Holocaust. Binary dualistic thinking that denies the complexity of human experience is a powerful tool for maintaining systems of power. For one, it makes it easier to pit us against one another, seeing ourselves as belonging to separate and distinct categories that exist only in opposition to others' identities, rather than as people interconnected through a spectrum of experience and existence. But it also does something even deeper, more lasting, and perhaps more sinister. It begins to deaden and erode our imaginations. It blinds us to the beauty that exists between binaries and across borders, and it limits the possibilities we can envision for ourselves and for the world. I'll share one example from my own learning. I participated in a workshop led by Soul Force, an organization devoted to countering white Christian supremacy and combating anti-LGBTQ theology. I found myself deeply moved and my imagination greatly expanded by the way they explained the creation story in Genesis, which reads that God created male and female and is often cited by conservative Christians to deny the existence and dignity of trans and non-binary folks. Soul Force notes that the same passage states that God creates light, calling it day, and separates it from the darkness called night. Though the text mentions only day and night, we know that it is referring to a whole cycle of light and dark. We never question whether dawn and dusk, sunrise and twilight are also created as a part of the day. And although Genesis also states that God made dry land and separated it from the water, no one denies the existence of the in-between places like swamps, marshes, mangroves, and shores where there is both land and sea together. Or take, for example, this quote from Charlene Martinez, who serves as the Assistant Director for Intercultural Student Services at Oregon State University, who writes that she comfortably identifies as Asian Latina American, not part this or part that. Martinez says, "Being multi-ethnic allows me to see things that others cannot. I often make connections between ideas that do not traditionally go together. I find delight in tearing down artificial boundaries, breaking the rules, and building rapport with all kinds of people. It's almost like a superpower," she says. "My parents say that I have had this belief system since I was little. Their acts of love for one another and resistance to cultural expectations allowed my siblings and I to come into the world. I am a product of their defiance," she writes. Both of these examples speak so literally to the creative power of resisting binaries, of refusing to stay contained on one side of an arbitrary dividing line. New creation, new love, new life, entirely new ecosystems are birthed from the in-between spaces in our world. As the line from the musical Rent tells us, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. And this is why authoritarian forces insist on dualistic thinking. They need us to buy into these binaries to maintain power. Because once we can imagine more than the limited choices we are given by the powers that be, we can begin to imagine and create an entirely new world. New ways of existing, of being together, of organizing our society that distribute power more equitably, that honor our interconnection, and that put love at the center. We can imagine and create a world that does not accept the cost we're told we have to pay to live in a prosperous society: environmental degradation, mass incarceration, death, and division. Liberation is predicated on our creativity, our ability to imagine something different than what currently exists. In this way, rejecting binary thinking, insisting on being both and people who value creativity and possibility, rather than either or people who see only limitation, is an act of resistance to this administration and a necessary first step towards getting more free. So then how can we learn to become both and people? I believe we can start doing that work here and now, and in so many ways we already are. We do it in our prayer time each week, where we make space to hold one another's joys and concerns at the same time, recognizing both the world's beauty and its brokenness, insisting that as a community we can embrace all of that at once and we don't have to choose grief or celebration alone. I have seen you all express gratitude amongst heartbreak, and I've witnessed you make room for one another's lamentations even when you are having a pretty good day. I've seen you laugh at funerals and cry at something beautiful, and I see the way you can sit comfortably in those borderlands of human emotions, acknowledging that a great many things can be true at once. And we do this every time we come together as a pluralistic faith community, where we hold multiple faith traditions and ways of understanding the divine in one church building, under one common set of values, and where we find that diversity to be a gift that enhances our own spiritual life, rather than challenging or diminishing it. I was so struck that around the bonfire after our earth-centered solstice service, many of you came up to talk to me about how you were interacting with the church's daily Advent devotional, a practice based on a Christian liturgical tradition. You saw the way these traditions enhanced and complemented one another without diminishing either one's meaning or uniqueness. You all are already so good at this both and thinking. And look, I am not trying to exempt us from the hard work ahead these next 4 years by taking things we already do and renaming them as acts of resistance. But I think our imagination is a muscle we can exercise. And every small chance we get to do that together here in this community will make us more resilient, more ready, more prepared to do it in bigger, riskier, and more immediate ways. If we embrace practices and theologies at church that reject binary thinking, it will deepen our commitments to speaking up and fighting for our trans and immigrant neighbors whose both and existence makes them a target for this new administration. And it will help prepare us for the imaginative work that is necessary to create new systems and ways of being that value love, liberation, and interconnection. I offer one brief note of caution, and it is that as we work to expand our imaginations beyond binaries and borders, we don't forget that those binaries and borders still carry meaning and power in our society as it is now. This is something disability activist and transformative justice advocate Mia Mingus cautions against in her work to break down the binaries between disabled and able-bodied. She writes, "I think we need to work to challenge and dismantle binaries in strategic and relevant ways that are both grounded in the world that we exist in and that help move us towards the world we want. Simply avoiding binaries or pretending like they don't exist is not helpful and often erases the current reality of disabled people who face very real oppression and violence every day because they get marked as disabled under that binary." It is an important reminder that our work is not to deny the existence of binaries, but rather to imagine the world that can exist beyond their artificial borders. So let us make it a spiritual practice to think outside the box, to dream of a world so much bigger and more beautiful and more creative than anything that can be confined to a form with single-choice checkboxes. Let us commit ourselves to rejecting dualistic thinking and false choices that pit us against each other, that keep our imaginations small and contained, and that threaten the lives of those whose identities cross countries and categories. Let us do this because it is the right and moral thing to do, because our values as Unitarian Universalists call us to protect the dignity of our trans and non-binary, disabled, multiracial, multi-ethnic, bilingual, and immigrant siblings. And let us do this as an act of defiant resistance to the forces of authoritarianism and totalitarianism that are making one last dying grasp for power in our country and the world right now. We will not let them stifle our imaginations. We will not let them keep us from dwelling in those in-between spaces, those borderlands where creation happens. We will not let them stop us from dreaming a better world into existence. May it be so. May we make it so through our living brave ones. Amen. Now let us rise in body or in spirit and join in singing, "Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire." The border is mighty, Alberto Rios tells us in our reading today, but even the parting of the seas created a path, not a barrier. May we work together to open our minds and expand our imaginations, creating new pathways towards love and liberation. For this is the day that you and I are given. Let us rejoice in it and be glad. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.
Van die lotusland waar die lelies groei en die koningsbloem op die boomstam bloei, waar jaarlang deur die gloriekroon en elke dag met gloriekroon, waar sag die koel suidoostewind die geilgroen wil begroet as vriend, en sagter teen die witstrand slaan die branders van die oseaan. Daar vandaan, daar vandaan, daar vandaan kom ek wat Mali het. Daar vandaan kom ek wat Mali het. Vry was ek